Solomon is the son of Bathsheba. Remember the story that David had this adulterous relationship with Bathsheba, and they had a child out of wedlock, and the child died. Solomon is the second son of David and Bathsheba. His name means peace. Shalom is the root form of Solomon's name. And he was indeed a king of peace. In fact, I was thinking just before I got up here, I don't think there was a single battle or war that Solomon had to be a part of. He built great armies and beautiful golden shields and so on, but he didn't have to fight wars. David fought all those wars, and Solomon had a reign of peace. His kingdom was the third kingdom that was under the united monarchy of Judah and Israel. Saul was the first, David the second, and Solomon the third. But Solomon, his life did not end the way that we thought it would. I want to take you to 1 Kings chapter 3, and I want to read verses 3 through 15. 1 Kings 3 through 15, and I have a lot of text to cover today, and I'll read a lot of passages of Scripture, but I want to take you through the life of Solomon. I want to show you 6 major aspects of Solomon's life, and there's a lot from his life that I think we can learn, but most of it we learn at the end of his life. But I want to show you what his life was like up until that point. So take you to 1 Kings chapter 3, beginning with verse 3. Now Solomon loved the Lord, walking in the statutes of his father David, except he sacrificed and burned incense on the high places. The king went to Gibeon to sacrifice there, for that was the great high place. Solomon offered 1,000 burnt offerings on that altar. In Gibeon, the Lord appeared to Solomon in a dream at night, and God said, "Ask what you wish me to give to you." Then Solomon said, "You've shown great loving kindness to your servant David, my father, according as he walked before you in truth and righteousness and uprightness of heart toward you. And you've reserved for him this great loving kindness, that you have given him a son to sit on his throne, as it is this day. Now, O Lord my God, you have made your servant king in place of my father David, yet I am but a little child. I do not know how to go out or come in. Your servant is in the midst of your people, which you have chosen, a great people, who are too many to be numbered or counted. So give your servant an understanding heart to judge your people, to discern between good and evil, for who is able to judge this great people of yours?" It was pleasing in the sight of the Lord that Solomon had asked this thing. God said to him, "Because you have asked this thing, and not asked for yourself long life, nor have asked riches for yourself, nor have you asked for the life of your enemies, but have asked for yourself discernment to understand justice. Behold, I have done according to your words. Behold, I have given you a wise and discerning heart, so that there has been no one like you before you, and nor shall one be like you arise after you. I have also given you what you have not asked, both riches and honor, so that there will not be any among the kings like you all your days. If you walk in my ways, keeping my statutes and commandments as your father David walked, then I would prolong your days." Then Solomon awoke, and behold, it was a dream. And he came to Jerusalem and stood before the ark of the covenant of the Lord, and offered burnt offerings, and made peace offerings, and made a feast for all the servants. So when you look at Solomon's life, really the first aspect of Solomon's life was Solomon was wise, the wisdom of Solomon. You see it here in this passage. God says, "Ask whatever you wish." And Solomon could have asked for wealth. He could have asked for all those great things, that the life of his enemies or long life, but he didn't ask for those things. He asked for wisdom. It's a great prayer, even for Christians to pray. You know, James says, if anyone lacks wisdom, let him ask, and God will give generously. Many people don't ask for wisdom. They ask for all sorts of other things. Solomon asked for wisdom. And Solomon's prayer pleased the Lord. You see in this passage that God was pleased that Solomon didn't ask for all those other things. He asked for the right thing. He got it right the first time. He asked for wisdom. But look at the first account of his wisdom. And you know this story. There were two women who were prostitutes, and both of them were pregnant. One of them had a baby, and 3 days later, the other one had a baby, and they were sleeping at night. And one of the ladies rolled over on her baby, and her baby died in the night. And she took that dead baby and replaced the live baby in the other woman's arms, and she took the live baby in her own arms. The next morning, when the woman woke up who had a dead baby in her arms, she looked at the baby and she said, "This isn't my baby. You've taken my baby." And they brought this before King Solomon. You know the story probably. King Solomon says, "Okay, let's decide whose baby this is. Let's cut the baby in half." And the one woman said, "No, no, no. Let her have the baby. She can have the baby." But the other woman said, "Yeah, go ahead. Neither one of us will have the baby. We'll cut it in half." And Solomon said, "Give the baby to the woman who doesn't want the child divided. Clearly, she's the mother of the child." Is it one of those examples of his wisdom? He thought things through in ways that other people didn't think things through. There's a passage in 1 Kings 4, 29 to 34. It says, "Now God gave Solomon wisdom and very great discernment and breadth of mind, like the sand that is on the seashore. Solomon's wisdom surpassed the wisdom of all the sons of the East and the wisdom of Egypt, for he was wiser than all men." Now, that's a bold statement. He was wiser than all men. And then they name some. Then Ethan the Ezrahite, Heman, Calcul, Darda, the sons of Mahol, and his fame was known in all the surrounding nations, all the kingdoms around the world. In fact, people would come from far lands to come and hear the wisdom of Solomon. He was just vast knowledge. We believe that God gave him some sort of wisdom and insight that was beyond just what you would learn by reading books. He seemed to understand things that other people didn't understand, beyond just how to make judgment calls. He understood things. He knew things. It says he spoke 3,000 proverbs, and his songs were 1,005. He spoke of trees, from the cedar that is in Lebanon, even the hyssop that grows on the wall. He spoke also of animals and birds and creeping things and fish. You see, he knew about botany. He knew about biology. He knew stuff that nobody else knew. God had given him this wisdom and insight that was just, sometimes you meet somebody that's super intelligent. And, in fact, every once in a while you run into somebody who has Asperger's syndrome. You don't always seem like they should be as smart as they are, because maybe outwardly they don't look all that smart, but they have this incredible, vast knowledge and information that is beyond what anybody would ever expect from them. And this is Solomon. He had this incredible wisdom he was so blessed because of that. Men came from all peoples to hear the wisdom of Solomon, from all the kings of the earth who had heard of his wisdom. He was just this man of great, great wisdom, very talented. He wrote the Proverbs, most of them. The first 29 are all attributed. The first 29 chapters on Proverbs are all attributed to him. Only 30 and 31 are not attributed to him. Now, let me give you a couple of my favorites. Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. "Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not unto your own understanding, but in all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make your paths straight," or direct your paths. So many of y'all know that. That's a proverb of Solomon, but what a great word. In fact, I read this, and as you get to the end of the sermon, you're going to see that, "Oh, Solomon, you knew this, but you didn't always follow it." I mean, how often have we done that, where we basically say, "I know what I should do. I know I should trust in the Lord." Some of you need to trust in the Lord today. Some of you are worried or concerned, and you need to say, "Okay, I'm going to trust in the Lord." I need to do that. Every day we need to Lord, and let God direct our paths, right? Another one of my favorites, Proverbs 6, 20 to 22. "My son, observe the commandment of your father, and observe the commandment of your father, and do not forsake the teaching of your mother. Bind them continually on your heart. Tie them around your neck. When you walk about, they will guide you. When you sleep, they will watch over you. And when you awake, they will talk to you." Isn't that brilliant? take these teachings, keep them so close to you, around your head, around your neck, so that when you're walking, when you're sleeping, and when you awake, they'll always be with you. It's brilliant, brilliant Proverbs. So that's the wisdom of Solomon. Let me take you to the work of Solomon. The building of the temple. Solomon is probably best known for the one who built the first temple. Before this, you remember, for over 400 years, 480 years, they've had a tabernacle that was built in the wilderness. And they've been dragging that around the desert. They drug it around the desert for 40 years, and then they maintained it through those years after they entered into the land of Canaan. But here, 480 years later, they're going to build a temple, a solid structure. David wanted to do it, remember? But God said David can't do it because he was a man of bloodshed. God didn't want a man of bloodshed building the temple. This was to be a place of peace. So Solomon entered an alliance with Hiram, the king of Tyre, and he provided all kinds of wood, cedar and all kinds of other trees of Lebanon that were part of the structure. And he was a mason, he was a craftsman. He was able to put together all of these pieces that had to be in place for building the temple. Solomon actually contracted 30,000 laborers from Israel who were going to help. He sent them out in relays of 10,000 each month to go to Lebanon, where Lebanon was way up north of Galilee, the north part right up on the sea. And so they would actually cut down these trees. They would build rafts, and they would take the trees down the coast to the Mediterranean Sea all the way to Joppa. Remember the seaport Joppa? That's where Jonah hopped a ship. And then they would go inland from Joppa over to Jerusalem. So all of this timber was coming out of the northern section, really higher than the place where Israel's land ended up there. He also hired 70,000 transporters, 80,000 stone cutters to build the stones for the temple. Let me tell you the temple, the collections that David had for materials that were built in the temple. David collected 8,000 talents and 10,000 derricks of gold. Now I know the talent. A talent is 63 pounds. 63 pounds. And a derrick is about 0.3 ounces. So he had a total, let me give you the rest of it, 17,000 talents of silver, again 63 pounds, 18,000 talents of brass, 100,000 talents of iron. He had 504,208 pounds of gold. 500,000 pounds of gold. I mean, isn't that amazing? Think about it. At today's price of about $2,500 an ounce, $20 billion in today's money, just in gold. Do you realize how much gold that is? I mean, some of y'all have maybe 5 or 6 ounces around your neck or in your ear. I mean, we're talking about tons of gold. It's just amazing. And then he set 1.7 million pounds of silver. 1.7 million pounds of silver. At today's price, at about $29 an ounce, $789 million worth of silver. 1.2 million pounds of brass. I have no idea how much that costs. It's a lot of brass. 1.2 million pounds of brass. 6 million pounds of iron. That's a lot of iron. You could build ships with that. I mean, that is a tons and tons. What an expensive building project. David collected all those materials, and Solomon collected even more materials as he was preparing for the temple. And then think about this description of the temple. Now, when I'm reading about this, all right, so the temple is 90 feet long by 30 feet wide and 45 feet high. Now, you may look at that and say, well, that doesn't seem all that big. 90 by 30, that's 2,700. What happened? Did we? Oh, the dogs came up? Comic relief. So 90 by 30, that's a 2,700 square foot building. So, in today's terms, that would be maybe a $500,000 house. But back in those days, this was a massive, massive project. Nowhere else in the world was there a temple like this. But also remember, it was made with stone, and the stone was so precious, they would saw it, cut it, smooth it, sand it in the quarry, and they would bring stone by stone and lay those stones to build that temple, stone by stone, some of them ton or tons in size, and they would lay it without any mortar. and each stone had to be perfectly fitted. And this 90 feet long by 30 feet wide by 45 feet high, solid stone on the outside. Let me take you into the inside. Inside, now remember this part, just the 90 by 30 part, which is 2,700 square feet, all that part contains is the Holy of Holies, that inner sanctum, just like the Holy of Holies in the tabernacle, and the holy place. There was also an outer courtyard. There were additional stories on the outside. There were storehouses, both on the side and above. It was a big, big structure, not just this part, but the part that was really important was this is a temple where in the Holy of Holies, this is where the presence of God is going to reside, in this room. It's going to be a 30 by 30 by 30 room, 30 feet by 30 feet by 30 feet inside that room. But get this, all the walls on the inside of the Holy Holies are covered with gold. So the walls had cedar on them, and then there was a coating of gold. So just think for a minute, if you've got some gold jewelry, think about how much gold it would take to completely cover the ceilings, the walls, and the floor. Solid, it would look like solid gold, but it was gold-coated wood. Just gleaming, beautiful. And this was precious gold, not some kind of cheap, crusty gold, really the good, shiny stuff. Beautiful gold. And then inside this 30 by 30 by 30 room, this square room, there were two giant cherubim. So an angelic, so imagine two big angels' wings. Is there a picture? You can kind of see them in that little picture, but an angelic being with wings. Each one of them were 15 feet across, wingtip to wingtip, and their wingtips touched. There were two of them, and they were facing outward. Now, this is an imposing picture of these giant, and they're covered with gold. 15 feet high by 15 feet wide with these wingspan that goes out 15 feet, and they're covered with gold. They're made of wood carved, and they're covered with brilliant, shiny gold. And listen, they're sitting in there, and beneath them is where the Ark of the Covenant is. Now, this Ark of the Covenant, again, it's a 480-year-old piece of furniture, 45 inches long by 27 inches wide by 27 inches high, covered with gold. It has a solid gold lid, the mercy seat on top. That is what sits beneath those cherubim. So think about this. You go inside this room, and there's a veil, a bright blue, purple, red veil that they go through. And you walk into this room, and you see this room that's full of solid gold, and there's carvings of, there are different kinds of plants and trees and so on in there. It's like a Garden of Eden kind of a thing is going on. But inside, these beautiful big cherubim, and then beneath the wings of those giant cherubim is the Ark of the Covenant, and that's all that's in the room. Solid gold wall, solid gold floor, solid gold ceiling, solid gold 15-foot by 15-foot cherubim, and this box. And that box, it was thought to be where the throne of God would be. This is where the presence of God would dwell. But get this. Only one guy sees it once a year on the Day of Atonement. Do you sometimes think, oh my goodness, what an incredible expense for one guy, the high priest, on one day a year, on the Day of Atonement, he gets to go beyond the veil. A couple of times he goes in, one time makes sacrifice, puts the blood on there, goes back in again. That's it for the whole year. Doesn't get to go back in there again. So think about this. A whole year goes by, and all of a sudden, okay, it's the day. The high priest, he walks in. Nobody else has been in there for the whole year. And the high priest walks back in here, and again, he looks in there. Can you imagine? Just for a moment. He's going into this beautiful place. The holy place, take you outside the holy place. Again, this section, and we believe it was probably down several steps because it's 45 feet high, but this 30 by 30 box is a little bit higher than the holy places. So you come down the stairs, all the floors, all the walls, all the ceiling, everything completely covered with gold. And there's lampstands in there. There's the altar of incense in there, the tables where the showbread are. Beautiful, beautiful place. But again, only these priests are going into this holy place. All the other people in Israel are not able to see what's going on in here, all this building project. And it's all intended for God. It's all intended for Him. I know this isn't a good analogy, but somebody asked one time, why do we give flowers? Why do men give flowers to women? Because you think about it, you buy sometimes a very expensive bouquet. I bought some expensive bouquets. You know how long they last? About a week. I mean, you have nothing to show for it. I mean, it's just like a waste, right? You just go, it's a waste. In fact, Joanne sometimes says, oh, don't waste all that money on me. You know, she'd rather use it and, you know, put that with some other money and maybe get a piece of jewelry. But it's a kind of a waste. But the idea of it being a waste is it is a sacrifice. You're willing to expend this money for this person whom you love, even though you know it's going to fade, right? So this great amount of wealth that's put into God, it's a sacrifice. All of that gold could have been used to make beautiful jewelry for all the women, but all of it coats the walls of a room that only one guy a year will be able to see. What an incredible, incredible thought. This incredible temple took him 7 years to build it. He started in the 4th year of his reign and spent 7.5 years, if you do the math. Now let me take you to the worship of Solomon. When they brought in the Ark of the Covenant, the priests brought it in. Of course, they brought it in according to the way they're supposed to do with the poles. They're not bringing it on a cart. You know what happened? Uzzah touched it when they were on a cart. Uzzah got struck with lightning. Nobody's going to do that again. In fact, nobody really wants to move the cart. You know, I'm sure this must have been, hey, who wants to move the Ark? I'm not volunteered for that, right? Remember Uzzah. Everybody knows Uzzah. Yeah, so they brought the Ark in appropriately, and they placed the Ark in the temple. And it says, this is in the 8th chapter of 1 Kings, verse 10. It happened that when the priests came from the holy place, so the priests went in, they put the Ark in place. The cloud filled the house of the Lord, so the priests could not stand to minister because of the cloud, for the glory of the Lord filled the house of the Lord. Amen. So this Shekinah glory, you kind of have to get this picture that you know what a cloud looks like in the sky. Imagine a cloud in the sky that maybe has kind of a glowing content to it. But it's so solid, this cloud, that when this cloud begins to fill the place, it fills the Holy of Holies, and it begins to fill not just the Holy of Holies, but it begins to fill the whole holy place. It's so strong that the priests can't even stand. It's just pushing down against them. In other words, this cloud that is the presence of God has substance. It has content. And it causes them to basically when this cloud becomes so strong, you can't do anything but be down on your face because the glory of God is filling the temple. And then look at the prayer that Solomon prayed in 1 Kings 8:22-53. I'll abbreviate it. He prays something along these lines. When your people sin, when they're defeated before their enemies, when the heavens are shut up and there's no rain, when there's famine, pestilence, blight, or mildew, even when a foreigner prays or if they're taken away into captivity, and here's what's at the end of every one of those things that Solomon prays, and they pray toward this place, toward the temple. Here in heaven, your dwelling place, hear and forgive. He's saying that when the people pray, we're asking you, Lord, if they pray towards the temple, and this is why the sacrifices that he made. In verse 62 and 63, now the king and all Israel with him offered sacrifice before the Lord. Solomon offered for the sacrifice of peace offerings, which he offered the Lord, 22,000 oxen. You know what an oxen is? It's like a really huge cow, right? Big, big, big. 22,000 of them. Just get that picture in your mind. I mean, just offer 2 or 3 and it's a ton, but 22,000. I mean, I don't know how many people usually have in their herd, like a cattle rancher. But, you know, they talk about having 100 head of cattle. That's a lot. 200 head of cattle. That's a lot. 22,000. Now, I got to tell you, this had to be a complete bloody mess. Every one of them had to be sacrificed in a special way. I know this is going to get a little gross. You know, this would be bordering on R-rated, maybe PG-13. They would have to cut the neck of the animal in a certain way so that they would bleed out because you didn't want it blood in it. Every one of them had to be offered up on this burning sacrifice. They would leave the fat in it. Those of you who make steak, can you just sense that smell? It's the smell of walking into Outback. We're not going there today. But it's just wonderful, and I think about when I smell a good steak, I say, you know what? God has the same kind of sense of smell as I do, because when I smell the smell of a good smelling, steak on the grill, it is a wonderful aroma. But think about this for a minute. They didn't get to eat it. Right. Here they smell this wonderful cooking meat, and they don't get to eat it. And then 120,000 sheep. I really don't know what sheep smell like when they cook, but I imagine that smelled good as well. 120,000, though. That is a lot of 120,000 sheep. He's sacrificing. So basically, again, back to this idea of giving of something that costs something. These sheep could have been eaten. The sheep could have been sheared and used for wool. It's giving so abundantly that you're basically saying, these things don't matter to me as much as you, God, matter to me. It's giving fully of the heart. It's giving out of your abundance, giving all that you've got. So massive amount of sacrifice. And then the response of God in 2 Chronicles 1:7, 1 and 2. Now when Solomon had finished praying, fire came down from heaven and consumed the burnt offering and the sacrifices, and the glory of the Lord filled the house. The priest could not enter into the house of the Lord because the glory of the Lord filled the Lord's house. Of course, this is the outer court area, now where the glory of the Lord comes down on the burnt offering, and now the whole area, the whole court is full of the glory of the Lord. So the glory of the Lord is not just in the Holy of Holies in the holy place. Now the glory of the Lord filling that whole outer court where the laver and where the burnt offering are. And then in verses 12 to 14 of 2 Chronicles 7, the Lord gives a promise. The Lord appeared to Solomon at night and said to him, I've heard your prayer and have chosen this place for myself as a house of sacrifice. Listen to this. If I shut up the heavens so that there is no rain, or if I command the locusts to devour the land, or if I send pestilence among my people, and listen here, and my people who are called by my name shall humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then will I hear from heaven and forgive their sin and will heal their land. Boy, isn't that a prayer we need? If my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked way, then will I hear from heaven and forgive their sin and heal their land. Oh, I wish they had done this. I wish the nation of Israel had done this. I wish we would do this. Amen. I wish we would do this in America. How many times have we quoted this? Maybe at the National Day of Prayer, it said, oh, that America would do this. Why won't America humble themselves and seek his face and turn from their wicked ways? Why won't we do that? Well, we can't expect our nation to do that if we won't do it. I mean, it really begins with us, amen? It begins with us individually. Every individual Christian has some, sometimes we're so busy saying all those people over there, they need to humble themselves and seek God's face and turn from their wicked ways. But this is for us. He says, my people are called by my name. By the way, America is not called by Jesus' name. There's a whole lot of people in America that are not Christians. This is a nation where we have many, many Christians, but many, many Christians who are basically not committed like this, with this level of humility and turning from their wicked ways. Well, that's the wisdom of Solomon and the work of Solomon and the worship of Solomon. Now let me tell you about the wealth of Solomon. How rich was Solomon? The weight of gold which came to Solomon, this is 1 Kings 10, 14 to 22. The weight of gold which came to Solomon in 1 year was 666 talents of gold. Every year, 42,000 pounds of gold, $1.6 billion in today's money. You want to know why ultimately the Babylonians actually came in and destroyed Jerusalem and destroyed their temple? They wanted the gold. 1.6 billion. King Solomon made 200 large shields of beaten gold using 600 shekels of gold, which is 12.5 pounds of gold, on each large shield, and he made 300 shields of beaten gold, 3 minas of gold each, 3.3 pounds. So small shield, 3.3 pounds of gold. Larger shield, 12.5 pounds of gold. And by the way, these shields were mostly for looks because they didn't use them. They didn't go to war. They could just walk around with these. Can you imagine this? These golden shields? I mean, you have to get a picture of how beautiful this is, this shining, beautiful gold shield. Who uses gold to make their shields? Only a king who sees himself as someone who's extremely wealthy because of God's blessing on his life. Incredibly blessed with all this. He made this beautiful throne. The throne it's marble and it's beautiful. It's covered with gold, and it has these lions that are on the steps of it that go up, 12 lions on each side, beautifully carved lions. All of this stuff, beautiful gold. Nobody's got a throne like Solomon. Nobody's got shields like Solomon. Nobody's got chariots and horses like Solomon. He's acquiring massive amounts of wealth. He's making alliances with all these area nations. Not only is he not fighting them, he's making peace with them and making peace treaty deals with them. He's trading with them. He's selling them things and buying things from them and going all around the world, getting all kinds of things that he's sharing with other nations through cost, of course. All King Solomon's drinking vessels were of gold, and all the vessels of the house of the forest of Lebanon were pure gold. None was silver. It was not considered valuable in the days of Solomon. They didn't even make vessels of silver because it wasn't considered valuable in that day. For the king had at sea ships at Tarshish with ships of Hiram. Once every 3 years the ships of Tarshish came bringing gold and silver and ivory and apes and peacocks. I always thought that was interesting. I went to get peacocks. What do you do with peacocks? Peacock feathers, I guess. But maybe you just wanted pretty birds around whenever you're in a land. Conservative estimates put Solomon's net worth at approximately $2.1 trillion. $2.1 trillion in today's money. Wouldn't even pay off her debt. So it doesn't seem like that much to us because, until you get to 34 trillion, you're not really talking about a lot of money. King Solomon ruled from 970 to 931, and during this time, he received 25 tons of gold for each of the 40 years of his reign. Over 1,000 tons of gold. That's 2 million pounds of gold. And at today's prices, again, it's billions of dollars, $80 billion. He was extremely wealthy. Okay, I'm almost done. So you see the wisdom of Solomon? You see the worship of Solomon, the work of Solomon, the wealth of Solomon. Now I know somebody's saying, what about them wives? The wives of Solomon, right? That's what you're thinking, right? He's known for his wives. 700 wives and 300 concubines. 700 wives and 300 concubines. You know that's 1,000 mothers-in-law, right? 700 wives. I mean, just do the math. It would take you at least, 3 years to go through all of them one night. 3 years. Oh, I saw you 3 years ago. Oh, you've grown. You're a little older than I saw you last. Well, yeah, of course that was 3 years ago since you saw me. Do I know you? Yes, you're one of my wives. I mean, how many? 1,000 wives. It's just startling. I mean, he's got to be acquiring them, 10 or 20 or 30 at a time. He only reigned for 40 years. How do you have time to have that many wives? Most people can barely have one wife in 40 years. Maybe 2, but 1,000. These wives. Yeah, wives and concubines. 1 Kings 11 says, now King Solomon loved many foreign women. By the way, you weren't supposed to marry outside the Israel faith. David married within the faith, but Solomon, he went after a lot of foreign women, along with the daughter of Pharaoh. Can you imagine that? Think about, remember it was 480 years ago you guys had to flee Egypt? And now all of a sudden you're marrying the daughter of Pharaoh? It's interesting, isn't it? Moabite, Ammonite, Edomite, Sidonian, and Hittite women from the nations concerning which the Lord had said of the sons of Israel, you shall not associate with them, nor shall they associate with you, for they will surely turn your heart away after their gods. So he had all of these wives, and each new wife would want to worship their deity in a special way. He built altars for these other gods, these other deity. It was a complete mess of idolatry because of all these women. Each new wife would come along and, maybe she would say, oh, Solomon, you have to make an altar for Moloch. In my country, we worship Moloch. And Solomon would say, whatever you want, honey. But again and again, this kind of thing happened. So the Lord said to him in 1 Kings 11 through 13, because you have done this, and you have not kept my covenant and my statutes, which I have commanded you, I will surely tear the kingdom from you, and will give it to your servant. Nevertheless, I will not do it in your days for the sake of your father David, but I will tear it out of the hand of your son. However, I will not tear away the kingdom, but I will give one tribe to your son for the sake of my servant David, and for the sake of Jerusalem, which I have chosen. So after Solomon's son Rehoboam became the king. And Rehoboam, through other stories that I could tell you about, did not honor the people. Jeroboam, the servant of Solomon, took 10 tribes away, and they became the northern tribes. Benjamin and Judah stayed with Rehoboam there in Jerusalem. So you had a divided nation then, and the divided kingdom continued. From this time, from 940, all the way 930, all the way to 722, the northern kingdom, there's not a single good king among them. They're all terrible kings. They're all idolaters. And all the way up until 722, and the Assyrian captivity took away all those northern tribes, the 10 tribes, never to be really seen again as a nation. And then the Rehoboam and the Judah kings, there were several good kings along the way, some really notable good kings along the way, but ultimately they went away to the Babylonian captivity and the destruction of the temple in 586, 587. So the kingdom's divided, the kingdom is no more, and prophet after prophet after prophet through the Old Testament tries to call the nation back to Israel. But if you look back for root causes, you can look right back to the life of Solomon and see the life of Solomon, where he brings in all this idolatry through these wives that ultimately infects so many people in the nation. So one last point, the waste of Solomon's life. It was a waste. He never, as far as we know, he never repented of his sin. He never turned back to God, never came back. He never remember David? David sinned dramatically. 2 great sins. One was numbering the people, which is another story I didn't tell. He also sinned with Bathsheba, but David repented. Both cases. Bitter tears of repentance. Solomon, there's no repentance. Solomon, even though he has opportunity after opportunity, he has this incredible wealth, he has everything going for him, but he never turns back to God. He never trusts in God again. He goes away completely after all of this idolatry. In fact, at the end of his life, he writes the book of Ecclesiastes. In addition to the Proverbs, he wrote Ecclesiastes and the Song of Solomon. But this book, Ecclesiastes, it's this fatalistic book of cynicism. In fact, sometimes you have to be careful when you read Ecclesiastes that you don't end up looking at it and seeing it as promises from God. Many times it's not promises. It's these fatalistic, sort of cynicistic pleadings of a man like Solomon, who's wealthy and all of a sudden realizes, let me read this passage from Ecclesiastes 2, 1 through 11. I said to myself, come now, I will test you with pleasure. So enjoy yourself. And behold, it too was futility. I said of laughter, it is madness. And of pleasure, what does it accomplish? I explored with my mind how to stimulate my body with wine while my mind was guiding me wisely, and how to take hold of folly until I could see what good there is for the sons of men to do under the heaven for a few years of their lives. I enlarged my works. I built houses for myself. I planted vineyards for myself. I made gardens and parks for myself, and I planted in them all kinds of fruit trees. I made ponds of water for myself from which to irrigate a forest of growing trees. I bought male and female slaves, and I had a homeborn slave. Also I possessed flocks and herds larger than all who preceded me in Jerusalem. Also I collected for myself silver and gold and the treasure of kings and provinces. I provided myself male and female singers and the pleasures of men, many concubines. Then I became great and increased more than all who preceded me in Jerusalem. My wisdom also stood by me. All that my eyes desired, I did not refuse them. I did not withhold my heart from any pleasure, for my heart was pleased because of all my labor, and this was my reward for all my labor. Thus I considered all my activities which my hands had done, and the labor which I had exerted, and behold, all was vanity and striving after wind, and there was no profit under the sun. This is the way Solomon ended. Jesus said, "What shall it profit a man if he should gain the whole world and lose his own soul? Or what will a man give in exchange for his soul?" Solomon is this great example of having all the blessings, all the opportunity, all the wealth, all the women, and yet missing out on the greatest thing of all. He missed out on a relationship with God and faithfulness and trust in God. He missed out on the most precious thing. He started out so right, and he ended so wrong. I think it's a message to all of us, because sometimes we have cravings and we think, I could be happy if I just had a bigger house. I could be happy if I had a nicer car. I could be happy if I had a bigger bank account. I could be happy if my 401k had more money in it. I could be happy if I had a great family. I could be happy if my children were all well-educated and had good jobs. Think about all the things that people think would bring happiness. And I can tell you, Solomon had the ability to acquire anything you can imagine that you think would make him happy. And you know what he found out? None of it made him happy. None of it made him happy. None of it made him fulfilled. None of it made his life more fruitful. All of it, he discovered, no matter how much he acquired, he had to get to his end of his life before he realizes that. He comes to the end of his life and suddenly realizes, none of this does it for me. And I will tell you, it will not do it for us. It will not do it for us. Find a place in your life where you can slow down and say, God, I realize you are all I need. I can acquire all these things. I can experience all these things. But it will never be enough if you don't have Jesus. But if you have Jesus, whatever you have, little or much, it'll be wonderful. It'll be wonderful to be able to have a relationship with him. All the gold in the world is not worth having a life with Jesus. Some people think that they can acquire so much in this life, and they'll finally come to a place where they can sit back and say, that old Sinatra song, I did it my way. But the song you need to sing is not I did it my way. I did it his way. I did it his way. If you could do it his way, doesn't mean that you'll necessarily be poor, but you can be fulfilled and you can have joy and fulfillment with what God gives you instead of acquiring all these things that won't bring you happiness and joy. Would you pray with me?